personal finance, it's really time for it to be personal again. I mean, I don't know about you, but I think like the universe has some sick game plan where it's like, hey, you should marry someone that has the exact opposite personality type than you. And if we don't understand the personality types of like our own money personality types, then we're gonna have unnecessary contention, frustration, guilt, or even worse, shame.
Let's put more money in your pocket, increase your financial IQ, and create more peace of mind, clarity, and certainty in your life. Welcome to Money Matters, a weekly segment of the Wealth Labs podcast where we tackle the money topics that matter.
Human ATM, otherwise known as Dale Clark. This is a guy that it was because of a free meal that we got together. See, because his dad, Jeff, was a client. Dale likes to tease me about it because I actually met at the kitchen table with them way back in the early 2000s. And he kept telling Dale, hey, you should meet my financial planner. And Dale's like, I'm good. I got this whole money game figured out. He was a miserable miser. He just pinched pennies. He didn't spend any money. He had it really figured out, man. He was going to accumulate a nest egg that he never got to spend. Fortunately, there's a different side to him now. So finally in April of 2005, he came to one of our workshops because we're holding it at a nice location. There was a free meal that came with the ticket. His dad bought him a ticket. And we didn't have this amazing vision for this workshop. We called it the Curriculum for Wealth. But he really spurred a much bigger vision for us because at the end of the day, Dale walks up and he goes, you know what? This changed my life. I was like, oh, damn, I just thought we were doing a nice little thing for our customers to give them some social proof of what we're talking about and make a little bit of money and get them to know each other. And he's like, yeah, it changed my life. I'm going to become economically independent in the next year. Now that means having enough assets to create cash flow to cover his basic expenses. Now, even though his expenses are relatively low because he used to eat peanut butter and Miracle Whip sandwiches. Why? Because Miracle Whip was cheap and jam, that's a luxury, man. You can't just have jam. Like, what are you, rich? Right?
That's right, exactly.
So basically he comes up and he says this, and kind of like when my son says, Dad, I'm practicing twice a day, I'm gonna beat LeBron James. I'm like, that's really cute. I thought it was cute that he said he was gonna become economically independent in a year because he had a small 401k, not much loan because he was really, mindful about that, but not a lot of assets to work with per se. And he was a rocket scientist, airplane engineer kind of guy building. He showed me a part just yesterday that he designed and engineered. So he was kind of doing this job because his dad said it would be a good living, not because he loved it. And when he said change his life, why don't you say kind of what happened from there?
Well, I mean, really the reason I went there was the free food and another opportunity not to have peanut butter and Miracle Whip sandwiches. So yeah. Awesome thing. But yeah, I attended the workshop. My dad had been trying to get me to go for years. Well, not years, but he had told me about you at least a year in advance, and he's like, you got to hear this guy, Garrett. He called me up one day at the office and said, Dale, there's a webinar, or there's a workshop going on, it's all day, and I want you to come. And I'm like, Dad, I can't get out of work. I was married to my job, was working long hours, 60 hours a week, and he's like, you have to come, Dale. You have to stop putting other people first. And so I basically came to the workshop, and it was just a phenomenal experience because I went in expecting to hear some good advice, but not anything transformational. Came out, wanted to quit my job. In fact, I told my wife, I'm like, hey, met this guy. I really want to align with him.
She probably really loved me at that time.
She freaked out.
Right?
She's like, no, there's no way you're quitting your job, Dale. But I said, well, what if I create this vision for myself where, I set a goal of, becoming economically independent, and it was 1 year. And
yeah, you lied. He did it in 362 days, like 3 days ahead of schedule. But I got to tell you, he did things I'm not willing to do. One, he convinced his wife to live off food storage. Food storage. Like I could see me going home. Yep. Hey, babe, this is the money personality thing right here. We're just gonna live off some food storage while we sock away some cash. She'd be like, it's like the time when I said, hey, your dad offered we could live in the basement. And I think her response was, I guess you don't care about having sex, huh? I was like, yeah, well, let's get an apartment then, Like,
right,
it was
we're gonna move up in the world.
I was like, okay, that's a good point there. But
right.
I was that miser too. We both kind of grew up that way and learned that way, and you kind of broke free from that. I think you make 10 times more now, maybe more than you did at that time.
I do.
I know you enjoy it a lot more, and that you look at the world differently. You just got back from Dubai. I know you took your wife to Hawaii. That's unthinkable in the old version of Dell.
Right. We even had lay-down seats on the overseas flight. I mean, who does that?
It's going to be hard to go back.
That's what I hear.
Man, once it's
a luxury.
Hard to go back. Luxury once enjoyed becomes a necessity. So we'll talk about how you got there, but let's talk about money personalities. Because you definitely were a saver and I was a saver at one time. So what's a saver?
So a saver is basically an individual that puts setting aside money above any other goal in life. There's no living wealthy. There's no focus on the,
Scrimp,
today.
sacrifice, delay.
Correct.
Eliminate expense. Live more cheaply.
Pay off all your
pinch
debts.
pennies till you get blisters on your fingers.
Yeah,
right?
interest, debt is evil, and so you got to get rid of that monster from your life. And so
and you can't be happy until you do.
And I wasn't. And
Right.
even if you have your debt paid off, you're not going to be necessarily any happier.
Right. So the good thing about a saver is that level of frugality, they typically don't get themselves over leveraged and in trouble that way. But the downside to it is they typically don't have a lot of quality of life around this. They'll spend a lot more time trying to save money on a transaction than on to build value. So there's 4 other money types, and the saver is a pretty common type, especially there's a lot of pundits and media that really get people to think in a budgetary constraint mindset and really enhance the saver. Now, a lot of savers marry a counterpart that's very different called the spender. Now, I've had moments in my life when I became a spender because, when I had these paradigm shifts of living like a saver for so long, I was eventually like, it's time to just go out there and enjoy life and throw caution to the wind. So a spender, their primary function is they just want to spend money, right? They just like to spend.
Right.
A lot of fun to be around them, but they're very dangerous in their own financial situation. There's not any peace of mind funds or staying power or liquidity, and a lot of times they're spending optimism. They're spending money they don't even have. Anything else you'd say on the spender side?
It just reminds me because the relationship, so my mom and dad were saver or spender.
Yeah.
My dad was a spender, my mom was a saver. And there was a lot of money conflict in their marriage because of that. And I remember times where my dad would go out and he'd buy a timeshare and he just would forget to tell my mom. And that was the no-no, that bad deal. But he forgot to tell her, and he's like, but Mary, we're doing this because we want to take care of our family. We want to go on vacations. We want to enjoy our life. And he was really focused on making life better for all of us, living wealthy today. And so I think there can be a happy marriage between
economic
spenders and
independence is that happy marriage.
It is.
You get enough recurring revenue from your assets creating cash flow, or if you own a business, having that business create entrepreneurial income, which is the income that comes in even if you don't show up to work that day. When that covers your basic expenses, it's not compromise. It's simply you have the right foundation that regardless of the money personality, you've got a solution. So we've got saver, we've got spender, then we've got the giver.
Right.
And givers are awesome. Like we've met givers that they actually give more than they actually spend.
Right.
Like it's their primary function. So there's so much generosity in that. But once again, they have some of the same issues as a spender, just a different type of spending that a lot of times they don't have their foundation built. They haven't built up their liquidity. They haven't taken care of themselves because they're constantly putting more into giving.
And it could be that they just have a belief system that money is evil. And so, who am I to become a millionaire if there's all these people that are suffering around the world? Why don't I give everything that I have to other people? Because, they're doing so much worse than I am. And
but money's stored value. Money's stored value, and we earn that through value creation if we follow principles. Sure, there's deception and coercion, and that's an exception to the rule. Sure, there's people that do those kind of things to steal money, but the reality is the more money you make, through principle, it's through the value you create. And it's just a way to store that so you could cash that in other ways to engage other people's services or other products or things that could improve your life or the life of others. And so it's just when it gets to the extremes of any of these fringes, like there's benefits of each money personality and there's a detriment, and the giver can give so much they don't take care of themselves.
Right.
Now, we've got the avoider. Got the avoider, and we have a mutual friend and client that he wouldn't even look at stuff when he would sign checks. Didn't ever want to see, he just wanted to avoid the money situation and was constantly in scarcity.
Right. In fact, we had another gentleman that actually worked with us here, Wealth Factory a long time ago, that was a money avoider, and the guy never opened any of his envelopes, his bills that he gave from the mortgage company. He didn't even know they were coming in. On his countertop, there was a pile this, couple inches thick of letters that he hadn't opened. And one day there was a knock on the door, and there were 2 gentlemen that had come and said, "Hey, we need you to move out. This is our house now." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "We foreclosed on your house. You haven't been making your mortgage payment for the past 5 months, and we just bought the house, and you need to get out." And it was a really awakening moment for him because, he didn't even know that he had missed a single payment. So that's an extreme version.
Yeah, that's the extreme, but obviously it takes some courage to confront finances. There could be things that happen in your childhood. It could be conversations around money, but ultimately avoiders is one of the more dangerous types. Now, the last type we're going to talk about is the amasser. So the amasser, I'm more of an amasser now. It kind of takes some of what a spender might be, but it's the downside to a master is too much can be emphasized on money, too much on growing wealth, too much on the work side, and not enough on some of the other aspects.
Right, and within a master, and I'm in a master as well, oftentimes self-worth and net worth go together.
Right.
And so if you don't have $1 million net worth, you don't have a $5 million net worth, then you feel worse about yourself. And so you're constantly pushing, driving, you're very driven.
Too tied up in you are your money.
Right.
Versus money is a useful tool for you to kind of live life.
Exactly.
And look, money's a lifestyle. If we don't figure it out, life becomes pretty complicated. But ultimately, knowing these money personality types, whether it's a saver, a spender, an avoider, a giver, or this amasser, helps us to understand why people operate certain ways. We're really familiar with the Kolbe profile, Kolbe. The Kolbe profile lets you know your conation. Your conation is how you like to go about getting things done. And so there's fact finders, and my wife's a fact finder. She likes to research first. There's follow through people. They just like to go and get implementation and follow up with something. That's how they initiate. Or there's quick starts like me. I'm always coming up with ideas. Or implementers who build things with their hands. And so when you know how someone initiates, if you have more than 2 or 3 points different, there's a potential for conflict. But if you understand, like I know my wife wants more details, I can set up a phone call for her with someone before we were to invest in something. I can get her literature or books, like especially around our health, that she can read and study and really dive in before just running to do something. So we joke, like if we were to do a home project, I would go buy something before measuring. I'd be like, oh, we'll figure that out later. And she would research every possible review on the internet and how it could work. So I mean, it's just understanding that there's not just good or bad when it comes to many personality types. There's proclivities, there's things that you're more likely to be like, and if you understand, you can more properly, mindfully manage your cash, mindfully manage your money, versus just doing it through a automatic system, like automatically not thinking about it, immediately go to avoiding, immediately go to spending, or immediately seeing yourself in your net worth. So once you recognize this, it helps you within your family to be more appreciative of their money personality, but more accepting of it and knowing that there's just certain things. And the solution to all this is economic independence. Enough cash flow coming in to cover your basic expenses. You know, if you check out YouTube videos I've done on this, on specifically the 5 ways to get there within 3 to 7 years, this crazy guy did it in less than a year. We've had people do it in a short period of time. I'm the 7-year guy because I'm not living off food storage. I wasn't going to cut back on anything in my lifestyle, but that's a lot better than 30 years and 95% of people not getting there in 30 years. At age 65, the U.S. Department of Labor says 95% of people are not economically or financially independent. We're here to change that because we want you to win then play. We want you to understand how to set up a game to win from the beginning, how to make money on the buy, how to profit from your idea from the very time you have it inside your head, to eliminate this notion of sacrifice where it's one day, someday. And just to recognize, as we dive in on these win then play money matters, one thing at a time, to increase your awareness, to bring personal back to personal finance, have you take control of your financial future and live the life that you love.